A card I just got. This May Eve, it's a holy day for us, holy day, holiday, also called Beltane, or Maiden Fire by some. We call it blossoming, and we are celebrating that beautiful principle of blossoming. We are a circle of wise women of every age, women who know how to flow with her seasons and how to celebrate and learn together as we go. And this is her season of the buds beginning to blossom in those first gentle intimations of the warmth and light of summer, coming summer. In gardening parlance, a bud that never fully blossoms is called a blasted bud. I think it's also sometimes called an aborted bud. Blasted bud is the term often used. What an ugly and yet sadly very accurate term. How many young girls just about to blossom into young womanhood are blasted by patriarchy? How many of us never entirely blossomed into the woman we might have become because we grew up in a woman-fearing, woman-hating patriarchy, a contemptuous culture in which blossoming in the truest and fullest sense was clearly not safe. And I'm remembering back into my own girlhood, into womanhood. At age 11, I had my first moon time, and I began to develop physically quite quickly. And that's when everything changed for me. I had been a wild, free, confident young girl. I was running around the countryside, building forts, no boys allowed, zooming around on my bike, miles from home, exploring, scuba diving with my dad at age 5. I was afraid of nothing. I was confidently expressing myself, talking to everyone, sharing my thoughts and my ideas freely without any inhibition. But at puberty, all of that changed for me. And I'm guessing for many of you too. What do you remember? I remember that suddenly I was restricted in ways I had never been before. Suddenly I had to be careful about how I dressed. Suddenly, for reasons that were never made clear to me, I was now supposed to worry about how my hair looked. Suddenly everything seemed a little less certain and maybe a lot more dangerous. Walking on the street alone showed me that adult men were clearly dangerous. Boys at school were neither respectful, nor safe, nor supportive. I lost some confidence, maybe quite a bit of confidence. I spoke less freely. And I believe now that because I had a loving family, not a perfect one, but a loving family, I myself was able to blossom maybe a little bit more than some girls, but still, by age 16, to some degree, I too was a blasted bud. Not fully expressive, not entirely allowed to blossom. I remember my dad saying every single day, act like a lady. And, since he never explained what a lady was, I had to figure out by, some kind of Sherlockian deduction exactly what that might mean. And I figured out it had something to do with keeping my voice down, never waving my arms around, and certainly never drinking out of a bottle or can, either in public or privately, because ladies use nice drinking glasses for their beverages, just in case you didn't know. 16 is a time when a young girl should have rightfully blossomed into young womanhood, safely, confidently, owning her body and her life with joy. And how many of us can say that that was true for us? Not me. For many women, the natural blossoming into true selfhood was harshly squashed, blasted by puberty, if not before. The years when a girl is meant to experiment, to try on identities, to follow her curiosity freely, those years for all young girls, all females, because we live in a patriarchy, those years were marked by horrific cultural conditions that made self-expression for girls and women much more dangerous than for boys. Our blossoming was not welcome. Our blossoming was not celebrated the way many indigenous cultures celebrate a young girl coming into womanhood. A patriarchal culture does not welcome a girl who is discovering her own self, her own interests, her own self-interest, her own authority and confidence, because in a patriarchy, women are not entitled to claim self-interest. That's selfish. Patriarchy only allows one type of blossoming, and a very stunted and twisted one at that. The kind of blossoming, and I use the term facetiously, from which average and awful men can extract, because that's what patriarchy is, it's an extraction mindset. So average and awful men can extract youthful, fresh shakti from a young girl. This kind of blossoming is strictly physical and sexual in nature, and we're squeezed into this tiny performative box that they wish for us. And so many of us learned, without being told directly, how to make ourselves into something smaller, less visible, but maybe we hoped safer, but that turned out not to be true most of the time. We learned to be polite and nice instead of truthful. We learned to smile falsely when there was nothing to smile about. How many times have I been ordered by some random man in an airport or on the street to smile? We all have experienced that. We learned that everything that bad boys and bad men felt and did was, in the end, somehow our fault. Look what you did to me. I remember men saying that to me very often. Look what you did to me, pointing to their crotches. It was, their erections were somehow my fault. We learned that we were not entitled to boundaries with either our bodies or our minds. We learned that we were to care for others instead of ourselves. We learned that we had to fix ourselves up somehow to be allowed to appear in public. In patriarchy, the maiden bud is, and this is true to different degrees for different women, the maiden bud is blasted, suppressed, not allowed to fully blossom. That's what patriarchy does to our blossoming. It blasts it. And who knows what kind of women we would have become had we been not only allowed to blossom fully, but rather encouraged and supported in doing so, like maybe with a special honoring ceremony. I would invite you to take a moment to go inward and remember your first moon time, whatever that was. Now reimagine it as it should have been, a time of joyous family celebration, a time of everyone honoring you, respecting you, looking at you with honor and respect. And if you had that, if you had such a ceremony, you are rare in this culture. You are rare, and good for you. The good news is that the blasting of the natural female bud before blossoming does not have to be forever, because as mature women, we now understand so much more. We know that we cannot change the past. What happened, happened. But our full blossoming can still occur. How? Why? Because our lives are in progress, because we are not done, and quantum physics has just proved it. I looked it up. A definite outcome cannot be determined by any single past moment alone, because the full context of the experiment must be established before the result is fixed. That's from a famous 1999 experiment called the Delayed Choice Quantum Eraser experiment. And in this experiment, a physicist demonstrated that what appears to have already happened remains indeterminate until the whole of the experimental conditions are known. And I offer to you that your life is like that experiment, because you're not dead yet. The context of your life is not yet fully established. The outcome is not yet fixed, as they say in the experiment. The experiment is not yet done, because neither is your life. So we mature women can now do something that maybe we could not do decades ago as a young girl. And that is understand and know how to move wisely and safely through this contemptuous culture with both courage and discernment. The blossoming that we can do now as adult human females, this is not some, desperate return to girlhood. You cannot go home again, and you can't step in the same river twice. But we can do something just as powerful. We can blossom now, consciously, choosing how. A choice that we can root deeply in the safety of our own wisdom, knowing ourselves, and our goddess tribe. No longer do we have to be dependent on the permission of men's mentally ill culture. So if you think that maybe you didn't blossom fully as a young girl, maybe let's begin it here and now together. What does a bud need to blossom? It needs strong, healthy, nourishing soil. It needs gentle, warm, safe sunlight. It needs fresh, clean, moving air. The patriarchal culture is not the soil we can blossom in. This we know. But a healthy women's spirituality circle can be our nourishing ground of being. And I would offer to you that perhaps, if you have not already done so, find one that feels as though you can be seen for who you truly are, seen safely in that gentle, warm sunlight of a supportive sisterhood circle. Find a circle that brings you fresh, clean, new beauty, combined with ancient wisdom, still moving through the red thread. These circles exist. These wise women exist. I know they do. If you don't have one, find one. If you need support, we are here. In the meantime, to promote, to begin, to further your blossoming, remember, number one, you will never heal. You can never blossom in the same environment that blasted you. Depart that environment as soon as you can safely, and do not look back. No amount of the devil you know is worth staying there. remember that trying to fit in can be self-abandonment. There is a balance, and this has been studied extensively by, I think her name was Margaret Brewer, or Marilyn Brewer. Anyway, it was a woman and her name was Brewer. There is a balance that each human has to maintain between belongingness and unique self-expression. And you have to find your own place on this continuum because it's different for everybody, and sometimes it's different depending upon the social situation that you're in. But abandoning your unique self so that others will accept you is a sure way to remain a blasted bud. Uniqueness, this is what she taught, uniqueness flourishes best when it is celebrated or at least witnessed without judgment. So find a circle where your uniqueness is not merely tolerated, but regarded as, maybe the whole damn point. Remember who you were before puberty. What were your interests? I was interested in reading, coloring, horses, and exploration of ancient sites. I was always riding a horse if I could, or more often my bike, to explore some, abandoned and ruined building out in the jungle or the desert, depending upon, where we were living. Some ruins somewhere far away from home, without my parents ever knowing what I was doing. So how about you? What did you love before the world told you that it was impractical, that it was ridiculous, that it was not affordable, we can't afford that it was not feasible, that it was not going to earn you a living, young lady? Return, if you can, to at least one of those things, and don't try to be good at it, because that's precisely not the point. Just simply feel what it was like to engage in that thing that you enjoyed before you were told to squash, to suppress, to smash your own desires. Remember how it was to speak your own mind out loud, in your own voice, your own words, without fear, without censoring yourself. Write something, teach something, say the true thing you want to say in the room where maybe it is not so welcome, but maybe that's exactly what they need to hear. Be sure you are physically safe to do so. For those of us who were trained to act like a lady or silence our true voices, our true being, just the act of speaking and being heard and surviving it is a form of blossoming. So this time of blossoming, this May Eve, breathe, remember, open. It is time to let our little bud finally now fully blossom. Blessed be.